Hey everyone, it's Kayla Holloway. I'm Kayla Holloway with Holloway Health and Life Benefits. I'm back with video 3 in the series. I'm also a proud ambassador with Women Unlimited. We're here at the headquarters of Women Unlimited today. We're excited to be bringing this video from the headquarters, and I have a special guest today. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Marisa Delgado, or Marisa A. Delgado with Mad Love Life and Health.
So Marisa is the newest agent with Holloway Health and Life Benefits. I'm so excited that she's joined the team, and we are going to talk today about some health insurance. We're going to keep on with that topic, and we're going to talk about ACA. And yesterday I gave you some tips about the different types of insurance, and I explained that we're going to give you a deeper dive into what the Affordable Care Act actually affords Americans, and so we're going to do a deeper dive into that, and we'll just have a good conversation. So definitely make sure that you follow along, share the video with anyone you think may benefit from this. So we'll go ahead and get started. So
lots of great tips and tricks.
Absolutely. So the first thing we wanted to make sure that we talk about is to remember that the federal law is called Affordable Care Act, and throughout this video and probably the entire month of June, when all of the videos will be coming out, you will hear us refer to it as ACA, because it's just the acronym everyone uses for the Affordable Care Act. And it was the law that was passed in 2010 that kind of made it some standards for what we have to have in place for certain insurance plans to be able to be sold on the marketplace. The marketplace is the healthcare.gov website, and anything that is sold outside of being an employer coverage, like we talked about yesterday, unless it's employer coverage or VA coverage or a state plan like the Medicaid or federal coverage like Medicare, those plans are a little different. Those are separate, like we talked about yesterday. But any plan that just a regular insurance company wants to sell in the United States, they have to meet these certain standards that we're going to talk about today in order to be accessible to the American people on the marketplace.
Good to know.
And if they do not meet even just one of the standards, that's when they're categorized as what we like to refer to as private plans.
Right.
So at least one of these standards has not been met if you are buying the plan off the exchange or off the marketplace. So that is where we were going to do a little deep dive so that you understand that if you do get a marketplace plan, and these are very popular for anyone who has your own business, or if you work for exactly.
I have my own.
Us. Exactly. So if you own your own business, or if you have, if you're working for an employer who does not offer insurance. Remember we talked about yesterday that any employer who has fewer than 50 employees, they're not required to offer a healthcare plan. So they can, or they don't have to. And so if your employer doesn't offer health care, your option would be potentially to get a plan that meets these standards we're going to go over.
And that's why you should call us, because we know all that info. We know all the background. We have our own small business, so we know, like other small businesses that maybe you also have as well. We can help you through that navigation of how to do so.
Exactly, that is exactly it. So let's go through what some of those things are. So the first thing we're going to talk about is there are 10 pieces of benefits that the Affordable Care Act instituted. So all plans that are kind of stamped as approved for under Affordable Care Act have to include outpatient services. I have a few notes over here, so if you see me looking over, I just want to remind myself of all of them. So outpatient services, which means that you don't have to be in the hospital if you just need to go to the emergency room, or if you have a doctor visit and that kind of thing. And then also the second is emergency services have to be included. So if you have an emergency, if you need to go to the ER, those have to be included. So if you have a plan that doesn't include one of these 10 things that I'm talking about, then it cannot be an approved Affordable Care Act plan. The third component that must be included is hospitalization. So your plan must pay and have benefits for you to be hospitalized if that's needed. This is a big one, maternity and newborn care. Not all plans, especially before 2010, because as we all know, having a baby can be pretty expensive, right? Especially if there were complications for the birth and that kind of thing. So insurance companies, typically, as we talked about in previous videos, trying to keep costs down and things like that, that could be one thing that a plan that is sold on the private sector, they may not include maternity care.
And you don't know so until it's too late. So.
Exactly.
So you're having that baby. So.
Exactly. So that is one thing that you know if you are getting a plan that is a ACA covered plan, it has to include maternity care and newborn care. Another one, in addition to maternity and newborn care, that is a big one, is mental health.
Especially post-COVID. Absolutely, mental health is so prevalent now,
Yes.
and we are very much aware of it.
Yes.
But the need to use it is so important, and not a lot of plans are covering that these days, and we're just now finding that out, or we're finding out when we need it. So definitely make sure your plan has that. If it doesn't, give us a call.
Exactly. So, and you also can know that if you do get a plan that is, compliant with the Affordable Care Act, it is required that it has to have coverage for mental health. And many plans that are not sold on the marketplace, this is one of the largest things in addition to maternity care that is excluded, is mental health. They will not include mental health coverage, so it's definitely something you want to make sure you have. The sixth thing that is required to be included is prescription coverage. So you have to have a plan that includes prescriptions if you get a plan through the ACA. The next is rehabilitative services. So if you need to go to physical therapy and that type of thing, that has to be included. It has to be a component. The other is laboratory services. So if you need to get blood work done, if you need radiology and those kinds of things, so anything that would be considered under those labs have to be included in your plan. You have to have access to those things. So that's very helpful. And then this is another little known fact is preventative and wellness. Not only do they have to be included, but they have to be included at no additional cost. So that means when you go to the doctor for a preventative or a wellness visit, there will be no cost. And that is huge. It's been very huge.
Those doctor checkups, I mean, we all know that they can get pricey if we have to pay out of pocket. So
absolutely. So
covered.
This is something that really is helpful to try to encourage you to go get your checkups before an issue happens, right? That's really what they're trying to promote is get your wellness checks and your preventative care, get things taken care of before an issue comes up. So just to reiterate, this is for your preventative and wellness, not I think I have an issue, I have a pain, I want to go get it checked out. That's not what wellness is, preventative. What that would be is your routine checkups, things that you are just based on what your doctor recommends for your age, maybe your gender and those types of things. There are a list of preventative and wellness things that they suggest you stay up on.
Exactly. So, don't wait until it's too late.
Absolutely
Know now.
I like the analogy my doctor used of let's catch the little fires before they're big fires.
Amen. Yes.
So we can put the little fire out potentially if you catch it early. So this is another thing that the private plans potentially not only don't cover, but if they do cover, they do have a benefit for it. It's definitely not at no cost. So that's that. And then the last of the 10 that is required is pediatric services. So children are definitely
costly
and near and dear to our hearts that we want to make sure that they have the coverage that they need. So there is requirements that all plans cover.
Nicks, cuts, scrapes, broken bones.
Exactly. And also a little known fact is specifically for children only. ACA has included in the laws some minimums that include for children dental and vision coverage as well. So the plans have to have minimal dental and vision for children, not for adults, but for children. So that's a really important piece. And then there are some also minimal, not minimal, some out-of-pocket maximums that you will pay for your children for dental. So that's really important, and it does vary a little bit per state, but that's very helpful for parents to know that if your children need dental, that it is something that you potentially can actually afford, because there's a cutoff, there's a maximum you can spend. So that's another thing that you'll want to make sure that you're looking for dental plans that have the Affordable Care Act kind of stamp of approval on them, because they also will have some additional laws that make sure that those plans include things that may be out on the private sector. Some of those plans, they may be a little cheaper, but then when you look at it, the benefit may not be there, because maybe their maximum out of pocket is $3,000, where the plan on the ACA is $500, for example.
And how I know a lot of our viewers are probably wondering, what is the age that our adult children phase out of our plan?
That is a really good question. So the age for adult children for all insurance, it is state specific. So in the state of Texas, it's the age of 26. So for the most part, for most states, and most states are starting to kind of go that route, but there are a few caveats, so I don't want to give a blanket statement, because obviously we're going live on Facebook and people outside the state of Texas may be watching, but it is typically the age of 26, and what we are talking about is a federal law. So the federal law is stated that all of these things are going to the age of 26, except for, it mirrors your state age, except for if you are married. So if the child does move out of your home and they get married, they start their own family, then that does not apply. And some states do have requirements that the child up to the age of 26 has to remain in college or has to remain in school. Not all states. So it's a state-specific thing, but a really good question. You definitely want to check out what your state rules are.
Definitely.
It's a really good question, though. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, in addition to those 10 components of what every plan has to include, are the fact that this law also made sure that if you need a health insurance plan, prior to 2010 when this law was passed, you may have to have medically qualified for the plan, meaning you had to answer some medical questions. And if you were very ill, the insurance plan could say, no, you're too ill, you're too high of a risk, you're going to cost us too much money, you cannot get this plan. And that is something that was written into the law in 2010, that any plan that is an ACA compliant plan cannot ask medical questions.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes. So it's guaranteed issue is what we like to, the terminology, meaning you cannot be asked a single medical question. Now the only caveat to that is you can be asked if you use tobacco products, because that is the only thing you could potentially pay additional funds, because there is an expectation you potentially will need more doctor visits and things like that. So that's the only thing that is technically not a medical question, but you potentially could have a rate increase. You will be asked that one question.
You can get coverage.
You can get coverage. You will not be denied.
You will get coverage. You will not be denied. So
exactly.
Give us a call.
Absolutely. And for any other or an actual health issue, you cannot be charged more, because that was the other thing. Prior to 2010, and for all of the other plans that are not compliant with the ACA laws, so those private plans we're referring to, many of them, most of them, all of them, still do ask medical questions.
Exactly.
Or if they have guaranteed issue plans, the plan, the benefit is very limited. So that is definitely something that is a benefit for this Affordable Care Act law, is the guaranteed issue. The other is that there is no annual nor lifetime benefit caps. The
I didn't know that.
private plans, private plans, many of them will put caps on there because it will, mitigate their loss. And so what we like to, again, the jargon that you may hear is called a stop loss. What stops, well, not only a stop loss from, that's kind of your max out of pocket is your stop loss, but for the insurance companies, what is their stop loss? That would be what their maximum is for what their coverage is.
Okay.
And so for the private plans, they can say, once we've paid out $1 million on your plan, we're not going to pay anymore.
Right.
For all of the plans under the Affordable Care Act, they cannot do that. They cannot list a certain dollar amount. So as we mentioned, at the federal level, which all these are, you can stay on your parent's plan until age 26, as long as you are still listed as the dependent, you didn't marry, and, have your own, you still are a dependent of your parents. Then the last thing we'll talk about in tomorrow's video, I'm going to go into a deep dive on this particular part. So we're just going to go very high level with this. But it is the fact that this is one of the biggest, besides obviously of some of the being able to access the insurance. Actually, before I go into this, I did mention being able to not have to ask any medical questions, but I didn't talk about pre-existing conditions. I do want to mention that because that's actually, I didn't write that on my list. Pre-existing conditions is still something that if you go with a private plan, they can still institute. And if you have an Affordable Care Act plan, they cannot say that if you already have an ailment or a diagnosis or a disease, that the plan will not pay for any doctor visits related to that for a certain amount of time. That's what a pre-existing condition is. The private plans still out there can do that, but the law is they can only do that for the first 12 months. So if you do have a private plan that does have pre-existing conditions still around, the cap is 12 months. On the 13th month, they have to start paying. But for ACA plans, they cannot do that at all. They have to pay day one. They have to start doing that. So anyone who remembers that, I've heard horror stories from clients of that being a very big deal.
The things we don't know.
Exactly. So I definitely wanted to mention that before we moved on. But the last piece that was a huge deal that got instituted with the Affordable Care Act is the ability for some Americans, based on income level and your household size, is getting assistance to reduce the amount you pay for your insurance. And that is called, sometimes you'll hear it called a subsidy, and the actual term is called an advanced tax credit. So it is based on you getting a refund from your taxes based on what your income level is and your household size. And again, I'm going to go a deeper dive into that tomorrow, but just wanting to know that this law is what instituted that. And so that gives affordable coverage options to many Americans who before 2010 couldn't access it because the premiums were so out of reach.
That's amazing. That's such great information. I mean, literally, I can't wait for the next one. Tell me more now. Goodness gracious. But yes, that was great info. I mean, if you didn't know, now you know, and now is the time to make those moves.
Exactly. So if you have a plan that isn't working for you based on some of the details that we just talked about, please reach out. We would love to help guide you through this sometimes really confusing information, and what we talked about today, just kind of skimmed the surface, but the real point is of what we do on a daily basis is we are here to try to help guide you through the process. It can be confusing, and we have heard horror stories from our clients of people getting in plans that they were really not sure that they understood the details about, and that's what we were wanting to make sure that we kind of educate people on. So that's what the idea of this video series is, and what our heart is for our clients.
We know from personal experience, so please let us help you through this.
Exactly. So in the description of the video, we'll leave our contact information, so please reach out if there's anything that we can answer, we would be happy to do that. Leave a comment. We'll respond to the comments below as well. And also, if this is something you think you would be interested in helping, we would love to grow the team. Come join us. And we will also leave a link to a LinkedIn job description. You're more than welcome to apply. We have remote options available as well if you're not in the San Antonio area. We definitely would love for you to join the team. And if you are in the San Antonio area, come out and see us. And until next time, which will be tomorrow, I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. And we appreciate Women Unlimited hosting us today. And definitely check out womenunlimitedsa.com, get your memberships, and come join us at this beautiful new location we have, and we hope to see you at an event soon.
Thanks for having me, Kayla.
Yes, thank you so much. We're excited to see you here more often.